While your fantasy league can't technically be won or lost inside of the first round, you can certainly make a great decision which leads to being a big part in winning your fantasy championship or making a disastrous pick that could end up being the reason why you are last place in your fantasy league. So in today's video, we are going to be breaking down how I believe the first round of fantasy football drafts should go in 2025 fantasy football. But before we get on into today's video, I would like to make sure that if you are new to the channel, you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into how the first round of fantasy football draft should go in 2025. We begin with the first overall pick. Now, in my opinion, in a majority of leagues, the first overall pick is going to be one of three players. It's either going to be Ja'Marr Chase, Saquon Barkley, or Bijan Robinson. Now, obviously, there are always going to be some outlier leagues because there is going to be someone in someone's league that at the 101 is going to take Pat Mahomes. They're going to take Josh Allen. They might be an incredible homer. Say they're a Jets fan and they're like, you know what? I want Breece Hall on the team. He's going first overall. Or I want Garrett Wilson. Or maybe they're a Bears fan and they're like, you know what? It's DeAndre Swift season. He's going at the 101, right? Obviously, that is not going to be a majority of leagues, but some leagues have that guy or gal that is willing to do something ridiculous, crazy like that. But a majority of leagues, it's either going to be Ja'Marr Chase, Saquon Barkley, or Bijan Robinson. Now, to me, it is going to be Ja'Marr Chase just due to the fact that I feel as though Ja'Marr Chase is the safest click inside the first round. He has an immense amount of safety. He is like a condom wrap around your team, and that is why he is currently coming off the board as the consensus pick number one. Last season, he was the wide receiver 1 in PPR and the wide receiver 1 in PPR points per game. He scored 85.5 more PPR points on the season than the wide receiver number 2 behind him, who was Justin Jefferson. Inside of the NFL, this is now his 4th season, starting back in 2021, coming out of LSU, and 3 of 4 seasons in the NFL, Ja'Marr Chase has been a top 5 fantasy point per game wide receiver. His only down season back in 2023, he was still inside the top 12 in terms of fantasy points per game. Last season, he was the Triple Crown winner at the wide receiver position, meaning he ranked first in receptions, first in receiving yards, as well as first in receiving touchdowns. He played in all 17 games. He had 175 targets, 10.3 per game. He ranked first in targets, 127 receptions, 7.5 per game. We already told you, number 1 in receptions, 1,708 receiving yards, 100.5 per game, number 1, and 17 total touchdowns. The man averaged a touchdown every single game, number 1 at wide receiver. In terms of efficiency, he was first in expected points added. He was 12th in yards per route run, 4th in yards per team pass attempt, and 5th in dominator rating. This is an offense that is catered to throwing the football. Why do they center upon throwing the football when they have a solid, competent running back like Chase Brown? It is because the defense reeks to high heaven. And when your defense is getting their back blown out game in and game out, you have to be able to throw the football. And that is exactly what the Bengals have to do. Last season, they ranked 2nd in terms of pass play percentage with 64.81%. And that was not just a fluke. It was not a wazi. It was not a woozy. This is the exact same situation in 2023. 63.45% of the time they were passing the ball on offense. So even though they have a competent running back like Chase Brown, they have to rely on the passing game. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL with Joe Burrow. In my opinion, Ja'Marr Chase is one of the best, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL. So they have the great chemistry together. They've been playing together since back at LSU. So you've got 2 incredible talents on offense, Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Burrow. They also have T. Higgins, and they have to throw the ball a ton game in and game out because their defense is absolutely terrible. So you combine those 2 things together, and that makes Ja'Marr Chase an incredibly great player to select at the 101, and I have full confidence in him. There's going to be a lot of people that say, Nick, you can't draft the wide receiver 1 because it's very unlikely he finishes back-to-back Michael Jordan 96, 97 as the wide receiver 1 year in and year out. It barely ever happens. And sure, maybe he doesn't finish as the wide receiver number 1, but he is a very safe pick and is very likely to finish inside of the top 3. Next up, we move to Saquon Barkley, consensus ADP running back 2 at pick number 3. I'm seeing a lot of people jump off the Saquon Barkley bandwagon. Over on Fantasy Pros, they have him ranked as the running back number 3, which I think is downright ludicrous, and Saquon Barkley is falling down some draft boards. I see him sometimes go at pick 5, pick 6, pick 7, and on Underdog, if you sign up using promo code Notorious, there are people on there that are going even crazier. I've seen him fall all the way to the 10 spot sometimes because people are nervous about the immense amount of workload that he saw last season, despite the fact that he's on a team with one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines. He's on a team that's going to be one of the most run-heavy teams in the NFL, and Saquon Barkley is one of the best, if not the best, running backs in the NFL. They want to have all of these arguments. They want to talk about the downfall of Saquon Barkley. They want to overthink it again. They overthunk it last year with the Eagles, with Saquon, and they're overthinking it again, despite the fact that we just saw Saquon Barkley be dominant 50 Shades of Grey style last season. Running back 2 in PPR, running back 1 in points per game. If you look on the screen on this graphic, you can see that in 5 out of 7 seasons, he has been a top 9 point per game finisher at the running back position. 16 games played last year. He was first in carries with 345. He averaged 125.3 rushing yards per game, 2,005 rushing yards, first at running back. Sure, the receptions aren't super hefty like a Christian McCaffrey, a prime Austin Eckler, 43 targets, 33 receptions, 278 receiving yards, but it don't matter if you're scoring 15 total touchdowns, 6th at running back. And there's a lot of running backs that get carried in the NFL for fantasy football by the fact that they're just volume monsters. They are gobbling down carries, they're gobbling down targets, and that pushes them up in the fantasy rankings. And sure, Saquon Barkley sees a boatload of touches, but he's also 4th in true yards per carry, 4th in yards per touch, 3rd in explosive rating, and 5th in dominator rating. Do not overthink Saquon Barkley. Do not overthink the Madden curse. Do not get cute, because you are going to get burnt by doing that. Again, if you want to take Bijan over Saquon Barkley, go right ahead, right? Because Saquon Barkley has had this tremendous amount of carries. He has had this super high workload over his career. And maybe you prefer to go with the younger guy. You prefer to go with the fresh legs. Go right ahead. But to me, Saquon Barkley is still very much deserving of a top 3 pick. Again, you have one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL with, in my opinion, the best offensive line, with the best or one of the best running backs in the game. Next up, we got Bijan Robinson because, again, Jamar, Saquon, like we said off the rip of the video, Bijan Robinson, those are the guys that should be going number 1, number 2, number 3 overall. So Bijan consensus RB2 at pick number 2. Running back 3 last season in PPR, running back 3 in points per game, which was very solid considering the fact that he came out the gate of the season running at snail's pace. The season starts off, and if you drafted Bijan Robinson, despite the fact that he absolutely face-fucked you in his rookie year, you were like, Nick, I believed in you. I drafted Bijan Robinson, and Bijan isn't really doing anything, right? The first 5 games of the season, it was looking bad. If you had drafted him, you were very disappointed. There was people angrily typing with their Twitter fingers at me, and then he finished very strong. His last 3 games are going to be highlighted on the screen, and those are the 3 games at which Michael Penix Jr. was the QB1 on the team. In those games, Bijan was the RB8 up against the Giants, the RB3 up against the Commanders, and the RB number 2 with over 30 fantasy points up against the Carolina Panthers. This is an offense that I believe will get better with Michael Penix Jr. under center. Now, I don't necessarily think that Kirk Cousins is just fully washed at this point, but I do think that he brings a lot more to this offense compared to the version, the old version of Kirk Cousins. Bijan Robinson was a guy that I banged the drum for in his rookie year, and it didn't work. But the reason why it didn't work wasn't because Bijan Robinson was just some fraud coming out of college, out of Texas, all that tape we watched, those numbers we looked at, the highlight tape you throw on, where he looks out of this world. He looks Kryptonian out there like he's Superman. He just sucks right now. He's just terrible. If that wasn't the case, it was because Arthur Smith is a complete and utter dumbass. We've been talking about this for years. Arthur Smith absolutely sabotaged Bijan Robinson giving Tyler Algier too much of a workload despite the fact that they drafted him top 10 in the draft. But then Bijan Robinson was able to become his own last season. He was 4th in carries, 3rd in rushing yards. He was 4th in targets, 3rd in receptions, 5th in receiving yards, and 6th in total touchdowns with 15. Another guy that is relatively efficient. 10th in true yards per carry, 1st in yards created, 17th in game script, and 4th in dominator rating. So we saw how well Bijan played down the stretch with Michael Penix Jr. This is a guy that I very much believe could finish as the running back 1 in fantasy football. And again, he is in consideration, in my opinion, to be the number 1 overall pick. Next up, we move to Justin Jefferson as pick number 4, wide receiver of the cold like Minnesota Vikings, consensus ADP wide receiver 2 at pick number 4. Last season, he was the wide receiver 2 in PPR, the wide receiver 4 in PPR points per game. Now, he has had 4 straight seasons inside the top 5 in terms of points per game. And every single season, all 5 seasons in the NFL, he has been a top 10 points per game performer. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter what your name is, Jabroni. It doesn't matter at all. Justin Jefferson is really that good. You make this joke all the time that it could be me, it could be you, it could be Peter Dinklage, it could be whoever you want as the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, and Justin Jefferson is going to continue to put belt to ass, game in, game out, season out. Now, say what you want about JJ McCarthy, and frankly, if you're like not the most sold on JJ McCarthy, I think that's a fine take. I didn't think what I saw at Michigan told me that he was clearly this franchise guy for the Vikings. But again, you don't need to have a franchise guy, the best quarterback in the NFL, to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. We just saw that with mono man Sam Darnold last season, because I really do believe that Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the team, is a true quarterback whisperer. He's doing some fucking ASMR all up in the quarterback's ears, and then the quarterback is just able to perform the scheme. Whatever that motherfucker does, he molds the offense perfectly for the quarterback, and Justin Jefferson is the clear focal point in this offense. Last year, he averaged 9 targets per game, 153 targets. He was 4th in targets, 4th in terms of receptions, 103, 6.1 per game, 1,533 receiving yards, 90.2 per game. 2nd, 10 total touchdowns, 5th at the wide receiver position. Another really efficient wide receiver, 6th in yards per route run, 10th in yards per target, 2nd in yards per team pass attempt, and 10th in dominator rating. When it comes to all of these players inside of the top 6, in my opinion, and then after the top 6, there starts to be a real big opening in the rankings. What I mean by that is, if you have my number 7 guy, some people might have him at 15, 16, right? A lot of people have different things towards the back half of the first round, but the top 6 for a lot of people is going to be very similar. When it comes to Justin Jefferson, I don't need to get down on my knees and give this guy the Sukalamink special. I don't need to slurp this guy up, metaphorically, of course, for you to know how great he is. We all know Justin Jefferson is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And again, do not downplay his ability because the quarterback position, because people did that shit last year, and he was a top 3 finisher in points per game. Next up, we move to CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, consensus ADP wide receiver 3 at pick number 6. Before we talk about CeeDee Lamb, though, and the rest of the first round, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll receive your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash, as well as my fantasy football draft rankings for 2025 and everything else that goes inside of my draft guide. If you sign up now, you'll receive an email early August with all of that included. So you'll be able to get the draft rankings by just depositing $10 over on Underdog. You also get the free pick, and you also will receive the bonus cash of up to $1,000. If you don't know what Underdog is, it's the best way to do best ball drafts in fantasy football. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the draft and that's it. No waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every week. Their biggest contest, Best Ball Mania, $2 million to first place, $15 million in total prizes, $25 to enter. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, and you might just find me in one of your draft lobbies. So CeeDee Lamb last season was kind of the season from hell for CeeDee Lamb. Now, he was still able to finish as a top 8 wide receiver in points per game, 3 straight seasons inside of the top 8, despite the fact that he was only able to play 8 games with Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott's another one of these guys whose name just gets ran through the mud. A lot of people like to shit on Dak Prescott because when the lights are too bright, Dak Prescott folds like a cheap suit. The Cowboys are these frauds, this, that, and the other thing. Nick, you're a Dolphins fan. You can't say any other team's a fraud. I get it, right? The Dolphins are the fucking AFC Dallas Cowboys. I fully get it. But during the regular season, this is when the Cowboys are at their full strength. This is when the Dallas Cowboys are fired up. And CeeDee Lamb is another one of these guys that is in the argument to be made that he is the best wide receiver in the NFL. There's a reason why back in 2024 fantasy football drafts, people were taking CeeDee Lamb as the wide receiver 1 or 2 off of the board. He had that wide receiver 1 finish in points per game back in 2023. And again, he only had Dak for 8 games, 15 total games played last season. For CD, he was 6th in targets, 5th in receptions, 8th in receiving yards. He only scored 6 total touchdowns, which was ultimately kind of the dagger for him not finishing higher at the wide receiver position. He was 75th in target accuracy, which obviously hurts a ton because Dak was hurt, 18th in dominator rating, and 21st in route win rate. So after one semi-down year for CeeDee Lamb, I don't think anyone should be worrying at all. And to close out the top 6, kind of the obvious top 6 guys, we got Jahmyr Gibbs, running back of the Detroit Lions, consensus ADP running back 3 at pick number 5. Running back 1 last season in PPR, running back 2 in terms of points per game. Back-to-back seasons inside the top 8 at the running back position in terms of points per game. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs could be the number 1 overall pick if we lived in an alternative reality. That alternative reality is where we Thanos snap, Control-Alt-Delete David Montgomery off the face of the earth, and not really, right? We don't want David Montgomery to be gone. David Montgomery seems like a nice guy, so what we really would do is we take the Toy Story, the Claw, and move him somewhere else, shoot him out of a cannon. He's on some other NFL team. Then we're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs as the number 1 running back, the number 1 overall pick in this Detroit Lions offense. I don't give a fuck that Ben Johnson is gone. It does not matter. Jahmyr Gibbs has that crazy upside. But you already know David Montgomery is going to be enough of a pest to Jahmyr Gibbs to hold him back from truly finishing as the running back 1 in terms of points per game, in my opinion. We saw last year, once David Montgomery goes out, Jahmyr Gibbs is lights out game in and game out. And Jahmyr Gibbs is still incredibly useful. This is not the hate on Jahmyr Gibbs. He's still a top 6 pick in my opinion. But with David Montgomery, there is that enough annoyance to where David Montgomery might just mess around and play the whole first quarter of a game. You're like, where's Jahmyr Gibbs? And then Jahmyr Gibbs just scores a bunch of touchdowns. It doesn't matter anyways, right? But there's going to be a lot of times where Jahmyr Gibbs is put on ice and David Montgomery's out there having a great time, and that does suck for Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, it is entirely possible with them losing Ben Johnson that maybe they become a little bit less creative and they're not able to get the substitutions as correct, and maybe you see a lot more Jahmyr Gibbs compared to last season, which is also something that I would still like to note, but David Montgomery being there does definitely hurt. Last season, he was 11th in terms of carries, 5th in rushing yards, 7th in targets, 6th in receptions, 3rd in receiving yards, and 1st in total touchdowns with 20. Another guy where his efficiency makes your eyeballs ejaculate. 4th in fantasy points per opportunity, 3rd in true yards per carry, 3rd in yards per touch, 2nd in explosive rating, and 8th in yards created per touch. Again, David Montgomery is annoying, but Jahmyr Gibbs is still him. He is still very much deserving of a top 6 pick. And if something was to happen to Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is instantly the running back 1 in my rankings, in my opinion. Now we move to pick number 7, and pick 7 through 12. This is where a lot of the debate lies. Again, sure, maybe you have a different first pick than I do, right? Maybe like Bijan more than Jamar Chase or Barkley, right? Maybe at number 6, you'd actually rather have CeeDee Lamb at 6, but you would go with Jahmyr Gibbs at 5, right? Sure, that is something people will do. But here's where the true argument begins, because I really do believe that people have drastically different opinions on these guys. And if your ranking of these players could depend on if you win your league or not, right? You might have my guy, Malik Neighbors, at number 10. So maybe you're not getting Malik Neighbors as much as I am. And if Malik Neighbors ends up being the wide receiver 1, like I think is in the range of outcomes, you might not end up winning your league because you passed up on him. So Malik Neighbors, wide receiver of the New York Football Giants, consensus ADP wide receiver 6 at pick number 10, wide receiver 6 on the season last year, wide receiver 7 in terms of points per game. Now, Malik Neighbors shined bright like a diamond. Shout out Dustin Poirier in multiple games last season. He had 5 games where he finished inside of the top 10. Week 2 up against the Commanders, he was the wide receiver 3. The next week, the wide receiver 4. The week after that, up against Dallas, he was the wide receiver 6. Then there was a bit of lull in terms of his top 10 performances. And then week 15 up against the Ravens and Nate Wiggins, he scores the 9th most fantasy points. And then he's the wide receiver number 2 up against Sam Womack, up against the Indianapolis Colts, 36.1 fantasy points. So the upside is there. The question lies with Malik Neighbors is how consistent can he be due to the quarterback play? Because last year, despite the fact that he was getting just the worst quarterback play possible, like if you could just think of the worst quarterback room assembled that actually played a bunch of games, it would probably be the Giants. You had Horsecock, Drew Lock, you had Daniel Jones, you had a bunch of guys playing quarterback last season. This year, it is much better though, and that is not because Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston or whoever they deem to be the quarterback one, who I genuinely believe will be Russell Wilson. Maybe they eventually pivot to Jackson Dart, but early on it's going to be Russell Wilson. And while I don't think Russell Wilson is the same Mr. Unlimited from a couple of years ago, he is levels above Horsecock, Drew Lock, and a guy like Daniel Jones. So while the quarterback play isn't premier, Malik Neighbors is really that good. I mean, just watch the tape. There were so many plays last year where there is not a soul around him. There is no one near him, no one within a 10-foot pole, no one within a school zone of the guy. There's a guy on the ground right next to him because he's picking up his cleats because Neighbors broke his ankles, right? He's picking up his foot off the ground, and the ball goes soaring and flying like Troy Bolton over him. The ball dribbles down. It's like a bounce pass, Jason Kidd, and it's nowhere near him, right? And he was still able to put up these crazy numbers. He had 170 targets as a rookie, 11.3 per game. Second at wide receiver. Third reception, 7.3 per game. He averaged 80 receiving yards per game, 1,204 receiving yards in 15 games. 7th at wide receiver, but he only had 7 touchdowns, 20th at wide receiver. He was 1st in dominator rating and 10th in yards per team pass attempt. This is a team, sure, they have Juan Dale, Mr. 305, Wandale Robinson on the team. They have some other guys, but none of those guys can hold the jock strap of my man Malik Neighbors. I think this is going to be his best season yet. It's his second season. I think he finishes higher than he did last season. I really do believe, again, that this guy is just a different breed of wide receiver at the NFL level. The LSU Tigers, go Tigers, just print wide receivers. We've already talked about Jamar Chase. We already talked about Justin Jefferson. Malik Neighbors is just one of the elite receivers in the NFL. And if the quarterback play just gets a little bit better, the ceiling is the moon for Malik Neighbors. At number 8, we have Devon Achane. Now, Devon Achane doesn't even come off the board inside the first round right now based on consensus ADP, but I've got a feeling that by the time we get to late August, Achane's going to keep on climbing up draft rankings. Running back 6 at pick number 15, running back 5 last season in PPR, running back 6 in points per game, back-to-back seasons inside the top 6 in points per game. And interestingly enough, he did it in 2 different ways. In 2023, there wasn't a crazy amount of targets going his way. They had Mostert, but in 2024, this motherfucker had 78 receptions. So if we can maybe get a more efficient rushing season out of Devon Achane, and you mix that with the crazy amount of rushing upside that he had in 2023, we might be looking at one of those legendary seasons where he scores 28 fantasy points per game. Obviously, is that super likely to happen? No, but I do think the path towards him finishing as the RB1 is very, very possible. If you look at his games played last season, I have highlighted on the screen are going to be the games with Tua. The games not highlighted are the games without. And the games with Tua, running back 3, running back 2, running back 2, running back 2 again, running back 24, running back 6, 6, 7, 13, 14, 3, right? And then you compare that to the games without Tua, running back 33, 44, 53, 25, 35, and running back number 8. So I fully get It's a tale of two different seasons, right? If you look at this other graphic that I made, on the left are the games with Tua, on the right is the games without. Running back 2 in points per game with Tua, running back 42 without Tua. So there's a huge difference. But in my opinion, in fantasy football, you don't win your league by being super duper safe with every single pick, right? I believe Devon Achane has that crazy upside, and sure, it is 100% attached to Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I do believe that the fact that he was the running back 42 in points per game without Tua will actually get better this season because the backup quarterback play will just inherently be better because the backup quarterback play last year was so bad. It would be very hard for me to believe that the Skylar Thompson-led Dolphins or the other guy that was like, fuck it, I'm a Dolphins fan, I don't even remember because I just erased it from my brain, how shit the quarterback play was without Tua. I think Zach Wilson, Quinn Ewers are better. Again, I don't think he's going to be the RB1 without Tua, but I think you're going to see a much safer baseline. I'm willing to take that risk because if Tua does stay healthy, I mean, we're talking about Achane potentially going to round 2 in some leagues where he's the reason solely why you won your fantasy league. The numbers have been shown to you. I put them on the fucking screen. This guy has 30 plus point per game upside in any given game with Tua Tagovailoa. He scored 30 plus points in 2 games last season. If you had Achane when Tua was healthy, you just knew he was locked and loaded as your RB1. You knew that he could put your fantasy team on his back in terms of efficiency. He was 10th in yards per touch, 7th yards created per touch, but 22nd in game script and 31st in run block rating. We saw in 2023 the Miami Dolphins offense on top of the world. I get they completely fell off the edge of the earth in 2024, but I do think Mike McDaniel is going to fix things. Things are going to get better. And Dynasty Input on Twitter, only one running back was able to post 10 plus receiving points per game last season for fantasy, and that was Devon Achane. Running back 1 overall is well within his range of outcomes, and I fully agree. At number 9, we got Puka Nacua, wide receiver of the LA Rams, consensus ADP, wide receiver 4. At pick number 7, I love Puka Nacua. I know I'm slightly lower than his ADP, I guess, because I have Achane ranked ahead of him and I have Neighbors ranked ahead of him, but that's really not a slight on Puka Nacua at all. I'm a big fan of the LA Rams offense this season and what they're going to do with Davante Adams. Wide receiver 26 last season in PPR, but he was the wide receiver 3 in points per game because he only played 11 games. He has been a top 6 points per game receiver in back-to-back seasons. He missed 6 games, the first 6 games of the season, with a busted bursa, which is a knee injury that he suffered in preseason. He had 106 targets, 9.6 per game, 79 receptions, 7.2 per game, 990 receiving yards, 90 per game, and 4 total touchdowns. He was first in yards per route run, 3rd in yards per team pass attempt, and 4 in true catch rate. Ron Stewart, put on Twitter, good friend of mine, nice guy, great YouTuber. Only 5 wide receivers have hit 500 plus PPR points per game through their first 28 career games. Odell, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss. You ever heard of those guys? Guess who number 5 is? It is Puka Nacua. Now, a lot of people say, Nick, Davante Adams is now in town. How is it possible that Puka could have such a great season? As if we didn't see just Jamar Chase and T. Higgins tag team in defenses, running 2-mans on defenses last season, putting up big fantasy points. We have seen it before. Just because the 2 guys are on the same team doesn't mean that 2 greats can't coexist. I believe heavily in Puka Nacua, and I think the fact that they have Davante Adams there does open the door towards Puka getting some more end zone looks for touchdowns because the defense is going to be so worried about a guy like Davante Adams. Matthew Stafford is currently dealing with some injuries. The guy's basically always fucking injured. He's an unk. His neck's a little bit fucked up. His back's a little bit fucked up, but ultimately he should be good to go for the season. Now, if we are getting to late August and it's like, all right, Stafford's not good to go, then we need to go down on Puka. We need to drop him down the rankings, but as of right now, I'm not worrying too much. Ian Hartitz put on Twitter, wide receiver yards and targets per route run in 2023 through 2024. Puka Nacua is at the top of the chart. Again, this motherfucker is elite. I don't care what you say. Puka can't be that great because Davante Adams, you sound foolish. At number 10, we got Christian McCaffrey, running back of the 49ers, consensus ADP running back 4. At pick number 9, you could take Christian McCaffrey as high as the top at 7. Like, I don't know if I would take him above Jahmyr Gibbs, but if you wanted to take him ahead of Malik Neighbors, I wouldn't find that to be that ludicrous in my opinion. I have all these guys in the same tier after the top 6. Christian McCaffrey was, in June 12th, the report was he was one of the guys, one of the few stars taking reps during the team drills, right? It's July 23rd now as I'm recording this, July 24th as you're probably watching this. So that's an old report, but that just shows that even during minicamp, he was taking reps. He's perfectly healthy. And offensive coordinator Clay Kubiak told reporters he plans on giving Christian McCaffrey the ball as much as we can. Kyle Shanahan seems similarly optimistic. Now, I understand Christian McCaffrey fucked me in the ass last season. Christian McCaffrey ruined my fantasy season. Christian McCaffrey is the reason why I was eating cup of noodles for the last 3 months of the season, and rightfully so. You were eating fucking ice for dinner. I get it. But if Christian McCaffrey's good to go, and I don't just mean like last year where we're not really seeing anything, but we're just, believing whatever Kyle Shanahan is telling us. We're just believing it. We haven't seen anything. We're just believing it blindly because we're fucking stupid. We were just believing it. This year, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to actually, let me see if McCaffrey's out there. I saw a picture of him with his shirt off. Pause. The dude is ripped out of his mind. He looks like Captain fucking America, and he's going to be the captain of my fantasy team because if I'm in the back half of the first round, I am all over Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey will be a full go and 100% at training camp, according to 49ers Sports Talk. CMC is back with no limitations. And if you would like a doctor's opinion, Dr. Jeff Mueller says George Kittle dealt with the bilateral Achilles tendonitis that tracked back to sometimes between 2020 and 2023 and sought stem cell treatment and hasn't had an issue since. Christian McCaffrey did the same thing in 2024 and is fully healthy again, also healthy from the PCL sprain. So again, you can be scared. Be like, Nick, I'm not drafting Christian McCaffrey again. The damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, because when this guy is healthy, he's a top 5 running back in points per game. When he is healthy, he has had 20 plus point per game finishes in 5 of 8 seasons and only top 12 finishes when he's played 16 or more games. I get it's a risk. I get it. But again, you don't get laid if you don't ask, as my dad always says, and which is just a weird thing for your dad to tell you. But also, in my opinion, Christian McCaffrey, I'm not going to be a pussy. I'm not going to avoid a guy that has that league-winning upside. I'm just not going to do it. At number 11, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 5 at pick number 8. I love Amon-Ra. He just feels boring, and that's a sad thing to say about him because he's really good. He's just boring because he doesn't have the same, in my opinion, like he's not as skilled as a guy like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, but he's just so fucking safe because they utilize him so heavily in this Lions offense. Wide receiver 4 last year in points per game. Wide receiver 4 the season before that. Wide receiver 10 the season before that. Wide receiver 3 total on the season last year. He did undergo knee surgery following the 2024 season, but based on everything that I found, that doesn't seem to appear to be an issue. 17 games played, 8th in targets, 2nd in receptions, 5th in receiving yards, 3rd in total touchdowns, 12 total touchdowns, over 1,200 receiving yards, 115 receptions. He was 2nd in target accuracy, 14th in yards per out run, 11th in yards per team pass attempt, 15th in target separation, 13th in true catch rate. Again, the guy is really good. He just feels safe. The fact that Ben Johnson is gone worries me slightly, but he's still a clear first-round pick. And while his consensus ADP is pick 8, I'm seeing him slip to the 2nd round a lot of drafts. And dude, if you can get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 2nd round and you're pairing him with a guy like McCaffrey, you should be laughing straight to the fucking bank because Amon-Ra really is that good. Again, he just is such a focal point of the offense. And when I say he's not as good as like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, that doesn't mean that he's like a bad receiver. And the offense really is just so catered to getting him the rock. Wide receivers to score 20-plus touchdowns over the last 2 seasons is Jamar Chase with 24, Mike Evans with 24, Amon-Ra with 22, Lamb with 20, and Jordan Addison-Ray with 20. So, again, don't overthink things with Amon-Ra. I just have him ranked a little bit lower. At number 12, we got my main man, Nico Collins. Nico Cousin, let's go bowling. Wide receiver of the Houston Texans. Consensus ADP wide receiver 7 at pick 13. So him and A-Chain not going inside of the first round, but I got them in the first round. I really do think by late August, they both will be consensus first round picks. Wide receiver 23 on the season, wide receiver 9 in PPR points per game. Back-to-back top 9 point per game finishes for Nico Collins. Nico Collins is another one of these guys where the efficiency is insane. The efficiency is insane in the membrane. 3rd in yards per route run, 9th in yards per target, 7th in yards per team pass attempt, 3rd in dominated rating, and 5th in explosive rating. The highest graded wide receiver based upon PFF. Now, say what you want about PFF. I'm not going to sit here and give some fellatio to PFF and say PFF is fucking do or die with PFF, because I think some of their grades are a little bit fucked up, but they do agree with me that Nico Collins is really good. He was the highest graded wide receiver over the past 2 seasons. Now, last season, he only did play in 12 games due to the hamstring injury. The first 4 games before he got the hamstring strain in week number 5. Week 1, wide receiver 13. Week 2 up against the Bears, wide receiver 4. Week 3 up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings, wide receiver 37. And then week 4 up against Jacksonville, he had them screaming wide receiver 1, 33.1 points in that game. So, say what you want about, oh, maybe CJ Stroud has fallen off. CJ Stroud was Fugazi rookie year. He's not that good. With a middling version of CJ Stroud compared to his rookie season, we saw Nico Collins show out. He had 99 targets last year, again in 12 games, 68 receptions, 1,000 receiving yards, 7 total touchdowns. And the competition in this wide receiver room is way less than last season. Now, it seems like maybe, just maybe, Tank Dell might be able to play at the end of this season. Again, that would be a Hail Mary type of assumption to make that he's coming back. I don't think he is. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sin, so I'm not going to say definitively. A report came out today that was like, maybe he can come back and play. I don't think so. So the wide receiver room, instead of being Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, it's Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Christian Kirk, Jalen Newell. They also have John Mechie, but not like those guys are crazily going to be stealing touches away from Nico Collins. Seems like from what I saw out of the reports today that the team really wants to try to push the ball deeper down the field more, and that would heavily boost up a guy like Nico Collins who could take a deep ball straight to the cribbo. So Nico Collins, to me, amazing wide receiver. Again, I have been banging the drum for this motherfucker since that long neck giraffe. My name Jeff, the giraffe neck fucker was playing quarterback for the team. Now it's CJ Stroud. I'm a believer in Nico Collins, just like I believe in Joe Hendry. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious to get your free pick. First time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus the draft rankings coming to your email in early August. I love you long time. I hope you have a great one. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. And as always, good boy.